Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, Shaykh. Hope everything is going well on your side. You can hear me well, right?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you. Now I can hear you. Perfectly
Okay,
clear. Yeah.
good.
Sheikh, so let's start off with something light. Given the
Okay.
situation in UK right now, right, with the new COVID mutated
Yeah.
COVID-19, right? And how's
And
the Dawah scene affected there?
yeah, it's affected a lot, to be honest. A lot of I-Era's Dawah has, up until this moment, been mostly what we could call street Dawah. We have really focused on, human interaction in a sort of face-to-face environment. That's always been the focus with us with I-Era, right? What we found, in order to really, we just couldn't have operatives sitting around doing nothing, right?
True.
Because at the end of the day, alhamdulillah, people are donating really generously, and helping to make I-Era a really significant force to be reckoned with in the world of Dawah, I reckon, right?
Yeah.
And since we made a strategic move to help set up Sapience Institute, which is run by Hamza Sortsis, which is really concentrating on the, I would say, the academic intellectual side of things, right? Whereas I-Era is very much focused on, I guess, dealing with ordinary people. Yeah. Going, I suppose maybe we're a little bit famous now for going to remote locations like Papua New Guinea and the Amazon jungle. And really, we found that these are some of the most fruitful places for Dawah, actually. So all of that stuff is still going on. In fact, a lot of those places, the lockdown is not really severe. And, so we don't rely upon people in UK. Most of our operatives are not in the UK anyway, right? They are abroad. So the work is still going on, alhamdulillah. But yeah, here in UK, what we decided to do was to move things online. In fact, worldwide, we started a online chat system, basically inviting people on various platforms to come in and just talk about Islam. And it has been, if we reduce it to, I guess, if we were very like mercenary, yeah, I could say, and we reduced it to how much does it cost to get a shahada? Yeah, I know we shouldn't think like that, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
But sometimes you have to be honest. As an organization, sometimes you have to set benchmarks for yourself, and even though you don't feel entirely comfortable with them, from a sort of aqidah, spiritual point of view, from the point of view of being an organization, you still have to set yourself benchmarks, right? And one of the things we try to do in I-Era is always, value for money is very important for us. We do not believe in wasting money. We don't believe in just, vanity projects and, doing something just because we fancy it. At the end of the day, our donors give us money. We want to make sure they get the best value for money, part of our responsibility towards our donors, right? And I have to say, from the point of view of value for money, online Dawah is brilliant. You can spend very little and get really amazing results. Yeah. So in terms of the numbers of shahadas, I don't think they've gone down. They may have increased because we moved a lot of our operations online. And in fact, we ended up spending so little money that we actually stopped fundraising. Normally we have a fundraising campaign in Dhul Hijjah, and we actually stopped because we said we've got enough money, and we can't even right now. We're not even spending the money we've got, so we're not going to be asking more money until until we spent it, right? So yeah, from that point of view, it's actually been really good. Yeah, I think, we always need to look at the positive side of things, look on the bright side of life. whenever something like this happens, I always think, what is Allah trying to tell us? What gift is Allah giving us? Yeah. Because that's part of having a good opinion of Allah. Having a good opinion of Allah is always thinking that whatever happens to us as a believer is good, right? Our responsibility is find that good, right?
Yeah, exactly.
No, so for everybody who has not been able to go out, is that a bad thing? Is it a bad thing that you spend more time with your family? Is it a bad thing that you could spend more time reading Quran, more time making dhikr, more time spending time just with you and Allah, right? No, like you have to make the best of every situation. That's what we've tried to do anyway, inshallah.
Mashallah.
It's a long answer to your question.
Yeah, no worries, Shaykh. So basically, like let me give you a little bit about myself. So basically, I'm a huge fan of the go rap technique. So every time when I heard of the UK, it's always, to me, the pinnacle or the epitome of Dawah, actually, for Muslims in the East or in the West. Like, they're always in the forefront of Dawah. Like, I remember a brother whom I've met in Hong Kong, who've grown up here locally. He's completely Chinese. And then he went to the UK to do his master's, and end up accepting Islam there. And this is something that really leaves me very astonished and also very curious as to what makes UK, or what makes the Muslims there in UK in particular, right? Makes it so attractive to non-Muslims to know more about Muslims themselves.
That's a really good question, bro. And I honestly don't know the answer to it. It's not the first time. I think some of the reasons, some of the issues are geographical, right? It's just to do with geography. UK is very small. We have a lot of people in a very small area, right? So it's a small island with, I don't know, we got a lot of 62, 65 million people. I think, I don't know what the population of France is, but I think we've got as many people in UK as there are in France, in like a titchy 1/30th, of the size of the area. So that means that relatively, and we have like what, now 3, maybe coming on to 4, 3% Muslim. It's going to be 4.5% 2050, right? So we've got a growing Muslim population. In London, the Muslim population is 1 in 10, right? So that's pretty big, right? So 1 in every 10 people is at least nominally Muslim in London, right? So this population demographics and this geography, right, does mean that in many ways we are it's easy for us to do things together. It's easy for us to work together, not like in the USA, for example, which is so vast. So you have the Muslims spread out all over the place, right? So you can have someone in, like, even in Texas, right?
Yeah, exactly.
One city in another city, the area is just massive. So I think there's something to do with the geography, but maybe it's something to do with, I don't know, maybe it's something to do with just the culture here. Like, you have to remember we have Speaker's Corner, right? It's like, I don't think there's anything like that else in the world, right?
Exactly.
I don't think there's anything like it. And I feel a bit hesitant to nail it down to one particular place, right? Okay. Like, although America, the USA, constitutionally enshrines freedom of speech. So from a constitutional legal basis, freedom of speech is way more protected in the USA than it is here, right? But then there's the actual practical manifestation of it, right? And the fact that in the UK, and a lot of people don't know this, but there are actually speakers' corners all over the UK. The only one that is still really operating now, right, is the one in London, in the corner of Hyde Park, right? But just that idea that there is a place where you can stand up and literally say anything you like. I don't know, that whole mindset, that whole mentality of speaking out and, challenging everybody and everything. It's something to do with that. I honestly don't know, bro. Right? I mean, there are many different factors, right? You know, we have Dara looms here. You know, funnily enough, maybe one of the things that helps it is the fact that you know, there is obviously types of sectarianism within the Muslim community, right?
Yeah.
But the fact that we are always challenging each other, right, and debating as well, means that issues are constantly discussed. And it's that, like I said, it's that close proximity. There's nowhere to run and there's nowhere to hide. Yeah. So you better run to your books. Yeah. And hone your debating technique. Yeah. And maybe it's also to do with the fact that, you know, the British people, listen, British people don't like being preached to, by the way, right? The British people, no, they do not like being preached to. Yeah. So the other thing is that, you know, like we have to find other ways of giving dawah as well. So I think it's interesting that the go rap technique, which is really, it's actually a very Islamic, you know, it's based upon some very sound Islamic principles, right?
Exactly.
But it also developed in an environment, you know, what is really nice about it as a technique of dawah is it's non-confrontational, right? You don't have to quote the Bible. You don't have to quote, in fact, we avoid it altogether. You don't even need to criticize anybody's religion. The nice thing about it is it's literally talking about essential, you know, concepts. I don't want to call them philosophical concepts, but basic essential concepts. And you're arguing about the concepts. You don't need to insult anybody's God, right? You don't need to make fun of their religion. You're just breaking it down to some simple essential things. Is there a God? What is the nature of this God, right? And does what you believe really conform to that basic pattern, right? That we agree is so logical and necessary. And then from that, it gives us an opportunity to present why Islam makes so much sense. It's very beautiful, very non-confrontational. You know, I could imagine that Mus'ab ibn Umair, you know, when he's in Medina, right? And you know, when I can't remember the name of the you know, the one of the
tribal leader.
Yeah, he was listening, watching Mus'ab think I'm going to beat this guy up. But, you know, Mus'ab said, look, why don't you just listen to what I have to say? If you like it, take it. If you don't like it, leave it. It's up to you, right? I'm thinking that sort of approach, right? I could imagine he must have been saying a lot of the same things that we say when we, you know, deliver go rap. So I think that, again, you know, the English people, I guess, here don't really care about religion that much anymore. We're one of the most non-religious countries in the world. So coming from the angle, which is what I understood very quickly when I was in Speaker's Corner, what's the point in me talking about the Bible? What's the point in the Ahmed Didat style of dawah, right? Which came from South Africa, where they have a still very strong evangelical, you know, that people here don't care about the Bible. You can talk about the Bible, they say, well, I don't really believe in it, you know. Why are you talking to me about the Bible, right? So I think, again, the go rap approach came out of the, you know, the environment where people were not really connected to the Bible in the first place anyway, right? We needed to get back to those fundamental things. So I don't know. I still don't know the answer to your question, bro. That's just my musings. Waffling. I'm just hoping something will pop into my head. You know,
no, actually, Shaykh, I actually agree to you with so many aspects, especially when you mentioned about the British people doesn't like to be preached to, right?
Yeah.
Same as like Chinese people, and especially Chinese people, since they are more towards or accustomed to Eastern religious beliefs, and usually they come across Christianity in the and to the extent there is a communal rejection to this one God or Jesus, we love Jesus kind of concept. And so whenever I used to bring it up on the streets, like in terms of like how we Muslims actually relate to Jesus, right? And usually I find the response isn't quite positive as well. And so when you mention about like people don't like to be preached to, and especially like Hong Kong people when they have the, I don't know, history or experience of being preached to unpleasantly. And so this have led them to hate religion altogether. And so whenever you want to bring up topics like regarding religion, like especially when it comes to theology, right? They get really offended. So they try to feel, or I wouldn't say offended, but then they feel very uncomfortable speaking about. So usually when I talk to my colleagues, for example, like here in Hong Kong, about religion, usually what they focus more on is usually the halal and the haram. Right? And then they will ask, like, why can't Muslims do that? Why are Muslims allowed to do that? Yeah, and then so they would actually.
The whole rap method is to say, well, that's a really good question, but it's not really important. The really important question is, do you believe that there's even a creator or not? What's the point in us having that conversation, right? If there's basic fundamental things that we don't even, we don't even agree upon. The thing is, there's a lot to work with the Chinese, right?
Yeah.
I think the Chinese has a lot of potential because let's think about, I know this is I know I'm being massively, I'm overgeneralizing, and maybe I could be accused of, looking at Chinese people through a Western hat or something like that, right? Okay, but I think that, if you look at the Confucian philosophy, that has in some way actually translated itself into, the modern Communist Party, right? But basically what connects them is the idea of the overriding importance of community, and how the rights of an individual are subservient to the needs of society, right? And that the most important rights are not individual rights. The most important thing is society, right? And that's how the individual flourishes. When the society flourishes, the individual will flourish, and so like I remember seeing, I was reading an article about Netflix movies and how Western movies hadn't often done very well in China. And they said part of it is because it's just like they're talking a different language, right? So one of the most popular movies in China was, I don't know, some sci-fi movie or something, when basically the whole movie is about a group of bureaucrats working together to save planet Earth from some disaster, right? And it's like, even I'm thinking, how do you make a movie out of a group of bureaucrats? But at the end of the day, right, that said everything, right? Because that's what's heroic, right? For the Chinese mentality, heroism is not an individual thing; it's a group effort, right? Exactly. So now, look, I'm saying now conceptually, it's something good from our point of view, right? Because you can say, listen, surely you understand that your own personal preferences have to be made subservient to a greater authority for the greater good, right? I mean, one of the things that is really hard for us to get across here in the West is the idea that you should give up what you want to do for the sake of the betterment of society. So, for example, the concept of hijab. Let's leave hijab. Let's say it's nothing to do with individual choice. Let's just say hijab is to do with protecting society. And the reason women need to wear it is for the betterment and for the good of society in general, right? And to protect them from the weaknesses of men. But the compound benefit of it is massive in protecting the family, in, keeping people away from all sorts of iniquities and transgressions. So the point of view is that they could understand that from the point of view of, there are some things in our religion that are there in order to protect the public good. Not everything is there for the individual. It's not about you, right? Okay. So that idea of submitting to a greater authority is not something that is remote or absent from the Chinese mindset, right? And that's what you have to concentrate on. The concept is, come on, guys, you yourself, how many times you surrender, you submit to authority, to expertise, right? Because that's what you do. That's for the greater good, right? But how much expertise is human expertise compared to the expertise of the creator of the whole universe, right? So you go back to that basic conceptual argument. What I find is you just have to find the way. You have to learn to talk the language, of the people that you are talking to. You have to think of the concepts that are powerful and strong for them. You understand?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So yeah, I think that's it. And I still think that, the overriding logic of believing that there is a creator, that there is one being. I mean, again, I think the Chinese would probably pride themselves on being quite logical and rational.
Yeah.
So again, to show that how monotheism is a really, really logical conclusion to come to, that when you look at, so you could give so many examples, about Hong Kong, about things in Hong Kong, about various buildings, about, an unlimited number of things. The mobile phone example is one, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
So yeah, I think you just need to find the key with people, right? You need to find the key. You need to find the examples
like,
that are going to be relatable to them. Yeah. Yeah, go on, bro.
Yeah, exactly. Because at the end of the day, like, prophets were sent amongst the people, right? Who speaks their language, who lives their life. And so they're the ones who understand their people the most. And subhanAllah, when you mention about how the communal plays as priority in the Chinese culture, and especially when I was talking with my colleagues or friends about why certain rules in Islam is actually for greater good, communal benefit, they actually very much agree to it. And so it actually works better than go rap techniques where even though it appeals to the fitra, some of them actually, this actually is related to my next question. Like when it comes to using the go rap techniques with my peers, with my non-Muslims friends, they don't actually they understand or they accept the rational arguments of there is a greater God, right? But then they take it as it is. They don't really act upon it further, right? It all makes sense to them.
I get that. It
all makes sense to them, but then they just leave it as it is, like continue with their life as though as if nothing happened or no discussion happened.
I get what you're saying. Omaru, yeah. So I think the thing here, bro, what is very important is you need, and this is part of Go Rap as well, right? But maybe it's not if you've done a 1-day course on how to give Go Rap, by the time you get to this stage, most people are tired anyway, right? So that's part of the problem, right? Is that, okay, so look, what there is in Go Rap between the existence of God, right? Yeah, God, the G is for God, meaning the existence of God, and O, the oneness of God. And then the revelation and prophethood. There is what we call a bridge. Yeah, so it should be really go, rap.
And rap. Yeah.
Yeah. And between the go and the rap, there's a bridge. This bridge is actually very important, right? Because it's this bridge, that is where you create that space, right? Where a person connects the basic, philosophical, intellectual, rational idea that there is one God, right? Between actually God revealing, giving revelation to us and guidance to us, which we need to follow. So that bridge is going to be very, very, very important. How you build that bridge, right? So what is maybe missing, right? Here is giving people those really compelling reasons why, that this is really practical, right? That no, you have to do. And to be honest, I'll be honest, bro, the most compelling thing is telling people about the akhirah, the day of judgment. You're going to die and you're going to stand in front of God, and there's a hell and there's a paradise, and this is the reality. This is what is, or you don't even tell them that. You ask them, what's going to happen to you when you die? What do you think is going to happen? What do you believe? Right? What is the purpose of your life? For what reason do you exist? You understand? Even if the you is a collective you, right? For what reason does society exist? What is the reason for the existence of society and civilization. Yeah. What, just to make your life more comfortable? You really think that that's all it's about? There's no greater purpose. There's no greater thing. So it's to get them to think about these deep existential questions, right? And especially to get them to think about life after death, right? The fact that there is a creator, you can't just leave it there. It has consequences. Surely there is a purpose. Surely there is a reason. Surely that God, who has given and this is what I often give the example, that, you know, like you can ask them, what's your pen for? What are your glasses for? What are your shoes for? What are your trousers for? Right? What's your computer for? Right? Even when they look in nature, we even know the earthworm has a purpose. Each creature has a purpose. What's your purpose? For what reason do you exist? Right? And like most people can't answer that question. So you're saying your pen has a purpose, but you have no purpose. The earthworm has a purpose, but you have no purpose. You know, don't you think that God, who has created this God, you have agreed, it, you know, rationally must exist? Do you think he has given everything a purpose, but has not given us a purpose? And just as God has given all of us, every creature has the means of provision given to it. We feel thirst, we feel hunger, and this creator has given us the means to provide, to fulfill that thirst and hunger. So how about this deep question? What is the purpose of life? What's going to happen to us after I die? Why is there suffering? Why? Do you think God would not also give the answer to these questions, would not also fulfill, you know, that need that we have to have that? So again, it's like, you understand, bro, it's about creating that space. It's almost, unfortunately, it's like you have to create a bit of pain, right?
Yeah.
It's like a t-shirt I'm wearing. You can't see it. Yeah, no pain, no gain. Yeah,
Mashallah.
no pain, no gain, right? It's almost like you have to create a bit of pain. You have to create a bit of existential angst. You have to create, you know, you have to say, look, you do have something to worry about. Don't be like the sheep, yeah, who live in the mountain, you know, live in the hills, graze on the grass, yeah, and are totally mindless of the day they're going to be gathered up to be slaughtered. And they probably just think, well, I grazed grass and ate it today. I'm going to graze grass and eat it tomorrow. Yeah.
Exactly.
And you think it's just going to be like that day after day after day? No. Why? What? A da'i, but I think that's the problem, bro. That's Omaru, what's missing maybe is that,
true.
You know, making that feel that anxiousness, making them feel that, you know, that worry, that concern, right? Because what you're really doing is lifting the veil. That's what you're doing.
Exactly.
You're helping them to see the reality. And that can be very painful. It can be uncomfortable. There's no way, I don't think there's a way to do it. Right. And the other thing, by the way, guys, for all of those who are giving dawah, want to give dawah, don't expect instant result. This is the other thing. Like at the end of the day, look, the result is not your responsibility. Allah guides who he wants to guide. Your responsibility is to open up that space. Your responsibility is to have that conversation. Your responsibility is to invite them, you know, say to them, look, I'm inviting you to the right path, the path that goes to paradise, that will keep you away from hellfire, right? It's not my, you know, I'm not here to force you. I'm not here to make you, but I do have to make that invitation to you and to tell you. So, you know, like if for no other reason that I'm free from accountability and from Allah, you understand, right?
Exactly. It's for our own benefit.
But also you do it out of genuine concern and, you know, love and concern for people. It's not just about, oh, I don't want to get in trouble myself, right?
True.
It's like, no, we should be motivated by a real concern for people.
Exactly. So when you mentioned about how we're trying to actually give them a sense of urgency in order to make them rethink the lives they have been going on, because if there's any country that is, especially in a cosmopolitan city like Hong Kong, if there's any country or city which people can easily get materialistic, it will be none other than places like Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Right? And then sometimes I feel like they're just so concerned or busy with whatever this life have to offer, where it further clouds their fitra. Right? And when it comes to dealing with people like this, sometimes it's hard for us as Muslims to actually bring them out. Right? So
I think the thing, bro, here is what I would do is try to get people to think about their life and ask them, are you really happy?
True.
And what do you want from all of this wealth, right? I would ask them, what do you want ultimately? What do you think you're going to get? You're fighting so hard for that promotion. Okay, get there. What do you think is going to happen?
Exactly.
Yeah. What do you think is actually going to happen? And what if I could show you something, right? So hopefully they would look. In the end of the day, they're going to say, well, I think I'll be happy, right? That's basically what most people are going to say. Right? I mean, you can question them and say, well, do you really think you're going to be happy? Aren't you just going to have your eyes on the next thing?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? You're going to be going for the next promotion. You're going to be going for the next level, thinking that's going to make you even more happy, right? But why? What if you can be happy right now? Why not just be happy now? Why do you think having something, do you really think that having some things is going to make you happy or happier, right? Isn't happiness something inside, right? So these are the questions that you have to get, right? And it goes back to, how can you really be happy if you don't know the purpose of your life, all right? If you don't know yourself, if you don't know what you really are as a human being, how can you ever really be happy? You can't really, can you?
Exactly.
Right?
We keep convincing ourselves the next goal will make us happier.
It goes back to those existential questions, right? But the thing is, you can do it in a very nice way, and just let people, look, I'm here. If you feel unhappy, look, maybe say to me, okay, I'm happy. Everything's happy. Fine. No problem. But let me, I'm here for you, right? When that day comes, you're sitting alone in your flat, right? And you feel all alone and you feel totally empty, yeah? And you feel this is all a waste of time. Here's my number. Don't forget me. Don't forget Omaru, yeah? Don't forget me. I'm here for you. Just pick up the phone and talk to me, because that day is going to come, right? When you realize all of this is nothing. And that's the day I want you to remember, right? I want you to remember the day I told you about the Quran. I want you to remember the day I taught you about the Quran. That happiness comes from being connected with your creator and knowing him, right? I want you to remember that, right? And inshallah, that's it. That's the most you can do, right? Because sometimes that's what people have to go through. They have to go through that crisis. They have to go through that, and then they sit down and they think, what's it all for? What's it for? Why? Why? Right? Exactly. And then that's the time, hopefully, they'll say, yeah, that guy, that Muslim guy, he told me, oh, where's his number? Right? So like sometimes you have to think ahead. We don't think of dawah as just being, like one conversation.
Exactly.
Harder, right? Don't think of it like that. It take? And I've always said, in the Go Rap training, we can say it can take 10 minutes, it can take an hour, it can take 40 years. Sometimes your Go Rap conversation with someone can be going on over 20 years, right? It's not necessarily like one conversation you have in a short space of time. It depends on who you're talking to. It depends on what space you create in that person's mind, right? I mean, everyone's going to have that. Allah says, the meaning of which is we will show them the signs within themselves and on the furthest horizons until they know this is the truth. Allah will show them the signs, right? But we have a part to play in that. The part that we have to play, right, is when Allah shows them the signs, we've planted that.
There's a seed. Yeah, exactly.
We planted that seed. We planted that thing. We planted that thing that they know. Oh, okay, yeah. That's it. I remember this Muslim guy, Muslim girl, whatever. Right? Talk to me. Yeah. Sure. We have to have a long-term vision as well, guys. It's not all about dawah, shahadas.
Well, Shaykh, when you mention about how we should mention to our friends or our peers that if they are lost or they are rethinking about the lives they have lived,
Yeah.
make sure we are here for them, right? This is the
Yeah.
part where I never really thought of, because sometimes when we go into techniques like this,
Yeah.
like go rap or informative arguments, right?
Yeah.
We lack that emotional approach or that concern for
Absolutely.
people. Right? At the end of the day, I believe what appeals to the heart the most is what comes
Yeah.
from your heart too.
Yeah.
Right? And then so that genuine concern for others is very, very important in Dawah. Yeah.
Absolutely, bro. And obviously that's part of the danger of the go rap technique.
Yeah.
Is it technique becomes a dating technique. It becomes, people look at it as a sort of, and we always say it's a map. That's all it is. It's a map. It's just a map to help you navigate. It's just something to help you build the structure of your conversation, right? That's all it is, right? It's not a prescription. It's not a script either. It's not a script. But we always emphasize the importance of empathy, of trying to understand a person. Like sometimes listening, like, to be honest, the best go rap technique is when you say nothing or virtually nothing. You do most of the listening, or even better, you get that person to say themselves what you want, right? It's happened to me. It happened to me with, there was one conversation, I think I was 10 minutes, the guy, after 10 minutes, he took shot, right? And I literally said nothing, right? I like, okay, you believe in God? Yeah, I believe in God. I said, well, how many gods do you think there are? You think there's one God, three gods? He said, oh, well, maybe. He said, I think there's one God, but maybe there's two. I said, what makes you think that? I didn't say, all I said is, what makes you think that? Then he said, oh, because, you have night and day and good and evil and beauty and ugliness. So maybe there's a, God for each one, right? Okay. I said, okay, right. Okay. So, and then I went through, that's the only time I really did talk. Yeah. Is when I went through why there should only be one God.
Should be one God.
Yeah. So I went through why it only makes sense. Yeah. So I went through the, the illogicality of, endless progression. You can't have a creator creating a creator creating a creator. So, I said that, look, God has to be different. He can't be the same as the creation, right? He needs to be, because if he's the same, you just get more of the same. Yeah. So God needs to be eternal and infinite. And I said, do you think you could really have two eternal, infinite, self-sufficient beings existing? Do you think that's possible logically? He said, no, that doesn't make sense at all. He actually went like this. Oh, he went, whoa, like, the cartoon when the light bulb goes on, right? Yeah. He just went, oh, yeah, it makes so much sense. Yeah. And then literally I opened the Quran, showed him a verse here, told him a bit about the prophet. That was it. He said, yeah, that. So like, obviously that was an exception, like not that many conversations, but again, I let him do a lot of the talking. As a lot of it was me asking him, what do you think? Would you explain that? How would you explain this comes to be in the Quran? How would you explain a man who behaved like this and that? And he himself said, it must be from God. He must be a prophet of God. I didn't need to say it. You understand? So I think, there's many different ways, right? Some people like to be talked to, some people like everything to be explained for them. Other people, you have to let them do the talking, let them figure it out for themselves, right? And again, this is all to do with listening. Be a good listener. Being a good da'i is all about being a good listener.
So important.
Like when a person asks questions, oh, why are you Muslims that and this and that? Say, well, okay, why are you asking those questions? What are your concerns? Why does it worry you? Yeah, what's behind it? Try not just react to the immediacy of what a person is saying. Try and think, okay, well, I'm glad you must be thinking about becoming a Muslim. Sometimes you can even joke, right? You can say, oh, you're thinking about becoming a Muslim, asking all of those questions, right? No. Why are you worried? Why are you concerned? Like, why does it bother you? These things, right? Because when you give them, when they talk, all that does is give you more understanding of their psychology, right? Gives you more understanding of how they think. And the more you are able to understand how they think, the more you are able to tailor what you say to their needs.
Exactly. So Shaykh, when it comes to doing dawah, right? And especially with Muslims in Hong Kong or actually Hong Kong people in general are pretty occupied with their occupations or different obligations or duties, right? And so how can we Muslims actually incorporate dawah in our lives? Especially when some of the Muslims don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is like anything, right? Is that, you know, like you just have to make space. I think, look, if you're asking how do we get Muslims to understand that dawah is an obligation, it's like anything else. Like, how would you get them to understand that salah is an obligation or Ramadan is an obligation, right? Well, you do that by reminding them of what Allah says. Look at these verses of the Quran. Look at what the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said. Look at the consequences for us when we don't give dawah, right? So there's so many verses of the Quran, there's so many hadith, there's so many things, you know, statements of scholars that show that, you know, like giving dawah for part of what we are as an ummah, right? Yeah. وَلْتَكُنْ مِنْكُمْ أُمَّةٌ يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْمَعْرُوفِ وَتَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنكَرِ وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. Right? So Allah, that's just one example, right? كل هذه سبيل إلى الله على ومن أتبعني. Right? So, you know, so let there arise from you, you know, a group of people according to all that is right. They enjoying what according to all that is good. They enjoying what is right and they forbid what is wrong, right? And they're the successful ones. Or كل هذه, this is my way. Allah says to the Prophet, say, this is my way. Yeah, I invite to Allah. Yeah, with certain knowledge, me and those who follow me. So like, that's it. If you're claiming to be a follower of the prophets, here it is in the Quran. You're claiming to be following the prophet and you're not giving da'wah, right? No, this is the way of the prophet. The way of the prophet is to give da'wah, right? Okay. So, and there's many other verses, right? So it is just really a question of reminding people, like anything else, dawah is something you need to do. You need to be giving dawah in your life, right? And even if you're not full on, I wouldn't even go rap full on, right? But even if you're not having full on conversations, the very minimum that you should be doing, the minimum is displaying the best of good manners, being the best in ethical business, right? When you deal with people, right? That the very least that you should do as a Muslim is that people should see husnul khuluq, yeah, the best of good manners, right? They should think about you as, wow, this person is so different in their character and their manners and their honesty and their truthfulness, right? The very least you can do is stand out from that perspective, right? This is your minimum obligation, right? In fact, really, you know, I don't believe dawah is through, you know, I don't agree with this. Dawah is through good example. I do agree that unless you have good manners and good example, the words that you will say will be very empty in people's minds, right? I agree with that, right? But I don't think good manners on their own is necessarily, it depends on where you are, right? But I don't think good manners on their own is necessarily dawah, right? Because people may not attribute your good manners to your being Muslim.
Exactly. They won't associate it to Islam.
Dawah. It's not necessarily dawah. Unless, for example, you go to a place where everyone is terrible, everyone is cheats and liars and thieves, and you know, and you're the only one there, and they all know you're Muslim, and they know that the reason you're not like that is because you're Muslim. Yes, then your man, you wouldn't need to say much, right? But you know, if you live, like I often say, with people, like at least in UK, right, unfortunately, many Muslims here, right, have the worst of manners in the viewpoint of the English people, right? Because the English have they're very particular about punctuality, right? When you're going to be at a certain place at a certain time, it's very important to the English that you're at that place and at that time. So already you can imagine what English people think of Muslims,
Mm.
right? Because generally Muslims are not punctual at all. So from the get-go, Muslims are looked at, as people who have, English people, things that, the sort of things that are really important to them, that you have that you mow your lawn, right? Your garden looks nice. Everything looks tight. Unfortunately, many Muslims, we have the messiest gardens, right? We have junk lying all over the place. We have rubbish outside our houses, right? Even I'm guilty of that, right? So like these things are, like this. Do you understand what I'm saying, right? So, just being, just working hard and not being on, government handouts, right? These sort of things, right? We shouldn't think we're giving dawah just by doing that type of stuff. That for them, that's just baseline decent behavior, right?
What we should be doing or aiming should be
English
above what they're
basically
expecting.
in their dealings with each other, they're pretty honest, they're pretty trustworthy. I know a lot of people who'd rather do business with an English person than they would with another Muslim, right? So we're not going to impress anybody here with our manners, right? The only thing we might impress them with is our family values. They might be impressed with that. The way we look after our elderly and stuff like that, that might impress them. But generally, just being, like the English are so polite, you're not going to impress them with good manners and good. What are you going to impress them with, right? So in England, I wouldn't say like saying, "Oh, the best dawah is with good manners." Like, what are you talking about? Really, just shut up. Yeah, you've got no idea what you're talking about, right? That's not dawah, right? And also, Allah says, "Man ahsanu qawlan mimma da'a ila Allah." Who is better in qawl, speech, than the one who calls to Allah, wa amilu salihat, and does righteous actions. So this shows to me that no, dawah is with speech, and the speech is backed up by good manners. The dawah is not by good manners, backed up by speech, right? You see? So it seems to me that really Allah is, and again, you look at the prophets, you look at the lives of the prophets in the Quran, it's all about what they said to the people, right? You don't find Allah saying, "Oh, and Musa, he was very polite." Okay, yes, Allah told him, speak to Pharaoh gently, and so that good manners is important, right? But generally, you don't find that Allah is talking about the prophets. Allah talks about they said this and then they said that, and they said, "Oh, my people, fear Allah, repent to Allah, this and that." Allah is telling us what they said. Right? And of course, the fact that they had good manners backed up their speech, right? But the dawah isn't primarily through good manners, right? So, people need to understand that, look, the very minimum you need to do is have good manners. And look, if you can't speak, at least just give someone a leaflet, give them a pamphlet, have pamphlets nearby in your business or, in your taxi, people can just help themselves to it, right? You don't need, if you don't know what to say, don't say, but at least contribute in some way, shape, or form. So, bro, it's about creating that awareness, right? If you're not reminding people of their responsibility, right, they're not going to take up that responsibility. So that's what you need to do, I reckon. Just remind people of that responsibility.
Exactly, Shaykh. When you mentioned about how people are generally unimpressed with us Muslims, with our mannerism today, especially, right, leaves us with greater importance of calling people to Islam.
Absolutely.
Verbally, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and
just hoping,
especially when
hoping that Muslims are going to display good manners, like that's just, I'm sorry, that is just like a fool's dream. Because you only need one Muslim to behave badly once, and then all of that is undone. So, and if people say, "Oh, the Muslims this," then I'm not talking about Muslims, right? They're responsible for themselves. I'm talking about what God has told you to do. If God says to you, "Don't drink alcohol," and you go ahead and drink it, is that the fault of the guidance, or is that the fault of the person's, right? And if a person says to you, I follow God's guidance, and then they go against it, where's the problem lie, right? It's not with the guidance itself, it's with the human being, right? So we should. I agree with you, bro. At the end of the day, right? It's imperative that dawah has to be, a verbal invitation by explaining, and I'm not denying that. And obviously, sometimes it does. That is what gets people curious. It's what gets people saying, like, how come you're this way? How come you're like that? Right? And there are stories of people who have become Muslim because of, other Muslims' good manners, and because, alhamdulillah, those people are sensible enough, that it does something to them, right? So there is that emotional intelligence aspect that you mentioned before, bro. It's very important, that whole emotional angle. That I think the things about showing that you genuinely care about a person as a human being. That's really important. Like, that's hard to come by.
Exactly.
That sort of stuff is effective, And when people know that genuinely comes from what Islam teaches, that genuinely our religion, right? Our religion gives us that real empathy and concern and love for our human beings, right? And our wanting goodness for them, So yeah, that can be impactful. I'm not trying to undermine the importance of good manners. I just think that the idea that just having good manners is dawah, I don't agree with that.
Exactly, because I remember asking Suyuks about what way to give dawah to non-Muslim family members, right? Usually when it comes to family members, they would first mention about how we should be best in character to them, treat them well, especially when we have non-Muslim parents, right? We should treat them the best way, how Islam educate us.
To be honest, bro, in this particular instance, in this particular case, I agree. And I'll tell you why. Because I think that talking to your non-Muslim family, and it depends on the family dynamics, right? But it's very hard. And most of the reason is because they still think of you as that little baby that that you were sitting on their knee, 20 years ago, right? That's still in their head, right? And now you're telling me this and you're telling me that, right? So I've given lots of dawah to my parents, right? And my dad did become Muslim. But I think my dad in the end became there for him, right? He's there with him. He was dying, right? Me and my mum, although my mum's not Muslim, I was there, right? And probably that is more important than all the things I said or didn't say to him, So when it comes to your family, there is perhaps a different dynamic. And I agree, when it comes to your family, the way you treat them, that's going to be very specific, because you can measure that, right? You understand? With your family, you can measure it because you know how you were before, right?
True.
Do you understand?
True.
But with your just general work colleagues and whatever and this and that, you understand that it's not really going to be so effective, right? But I think for family, definitely, that is very key. I'd agree with that. Yeah.
Like given your experience,
it applies to every other situation. I'm just saying.
True. Because some of the advices I get is like, when it comes to family member, all you need to do is to actually display good manners, right? But then I feel like
I don't think it's all you need to do, bro.
Yeah, because I feel like you are somehow falling short in letting them know about Islam, or at least associating those good manners to Islam, right? So sometimes I feel falling short when it comes to dealing with non-Muslim family members with just merely good manners. I feel like they should also know how Islam has changed you in a person, because at the end of the day, some of the most powerful certainty that we've gained as Muslims is how Islam has turned our entire life over. Right? How we try to change or try to be a better person by day. Right? And I believe this should be recognized and given credit to Islam.
Yeah. I agree with that, bro. But my word of caution would be that in your enthusiasm to tell your family about Islam, you might actually just put them off as well. So you have to tread a very gentle line. Like my advice, you know, with my advice with family is exactly the same that the sheikhs you've heard give. Show them good manners. But I would add to that, in general, and it depends upon your family dynamic. Look, if your family is very liberal, you just talk about everything all the time, you know, like some people, that's it. Like there's many stories of people who become Muslim, go back, tell their mum and dads, and their mum and dads become Muslim. That's
exactly.
it. Like, you understand? It depends on your family. It depends on your, you know, look at Yusuf Estes' story, which is just hilarious because, you know, like he's been Muslim, his dad's Muslim, his wife's Muslim, both becoming Muslim at the same time, both like telling each other, look, I've got something to tell you, you know, like, yeah, and I've got something to tell you. Brilliant. Right. Yeah. So, you know, so it just depends, right, on the family dynamic, right? But if you have a family who you are finding hard to accept that you're Muslim and putting up a lot of resistance, right, then the strategy I advise is don't talk about Islam until they ask you. And they will ask you, right? So when they start asking, oh, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Why? Then you say, and you start telling them, you can start your dawah, right? And when they say, well, yeah, I don't want to hear any more of that, you just say, well, you ask me. You could ask me, right? You ask me, I'm trying to tell you. But if you don't want to hear it, that's fine. I'm not going to shove anything down your throat. No problem. Yeah. Do you understand, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, that's it.
Yeah. MashaAllah. I think we can go on forever.
Yeah, we could go on a long time, bro.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
actually have to pray Asr. I haven't, unfortunately, I'm looking at the time, I missed my birth. We have very, very short days in the UK. Like, in fact, it's yesterday or the day before was the what we call the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year. So, like sunrise is at like 8:30 and sunset is like, you know, before 4 o'clock. So we have like, and then we have like Asr, Maghrib come boom, 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 one after the other, really quick. So, yeah, I had like a series of meetings before this, and so yeah, I probably need to go and pray.
No worries, Shaykh. No worries, Shaykh. So
yeah,
it was nice talking to you.
Guys. Anytime. Yeah. I hope I make it to Hong Kong sometime.
Inshallah. We would love to host you, Shaykh.
Inshallah. Good stuff.
Inshallah.
So from
my brothers and
Alhamdulillah, so really a big thanks to both Brother Omaru and Brother Abdur Green for this important conversation and discussion. May Almighty Allah accept it from all of us and may it be beneficial to those who will watch this interview. So inshallah, we will end the session right here.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.